Hello everybody, I'm Prowl, and today's video is going to be an extensive redstone guide that will have some good information in it about most, if not all, redstone components that will be useful for a range of players, from barely even know what redstone is, to people that are comfortable with redstone but maybe not quite pros. And for my pros out there that are watching this, feel free to drop your own useful tips down in the comment section below to help me and everybody else out. So the first thing I want to cover is just the very basics of what redstone is. And while it's a lot of things, it's mainly the game's form of electricity. It's a way to power different devices or blocks in the game and make them behave in different ways. It's probably Minecraft's most unique feature and the thing that keeps the game so interesting for so many for so long. If you've ever interacted with a hopper, a lever, a piece of redstone dust, anything, then you've benefited from redstone in some way, shape, or form. And it all starts with really just two things. It starts with redstone dust and some type of power source. This is kind of like the very basics. This is the very beginnings of how redstone works. And I'll mention different power sources later, and we're going to go over all the components and everything. But for now, what's important for you to understand is the default limit of any power source. And that limit is 15. So when I flick this lever, I have a total of 15 of these redstone lamps turn on. And that's because when I flip this lever to power this block, that signal, max, can go 15 blocks long before it stops. And at that point, it's not producing signal anymore, which is why this redstone lamp right here is not turned on. Now, there's a lot of things that are happening, and even just the flick of this lever, and we're going to go over all those things. We're talking about stuff like hard power versus soft power. We're talking about how blocks can be powered to then power other things like these lamps. So there's a lot of things that are going on in just something as simple as this. And really, my aim here is to help you kind of understand how each of these components work, a little bit of how they like interact with each other. And with that knowledge, you'll be able to understand the things that you see inside of redstone. Tutorials that you may follow for farms or other redstone devices, it'll start to make sense to you what things are happening and why. And that's going to form the basis of how you will be able to make your own redstone devices later on. Learning how each individual component itself works then helps you understand how the things you have been copying works, which then helps you modify those things and then eventually create your own. So let's go ahead and get started with that, as there are two types of power that you need to know about. There is hard power and there is soft power. Hard power is the thing that you are powering. If I'm directly applying power to something, like in this case, this block right here, this block is hard powered. It's able to take the redstone signal that it is receiving, and it is able to share that signal out to other things. I can put this redstone lamp here and it's getting powered. The lever's not on it, but the lever's on this solid block here. But since this solid block is being hard powered, it is able to soft power this. Now, what happens is hard power transfers to stuff, soft power does not. You can see I get power over here, I don't get power over there. Now, not everything is going to be able to get powered even at all. For example, like this piece of glass, this is a transparent block is what the game considers it as. Most things that are not a full block are transparent blocks, and in glass is also a transparent block. And there's probably a couple other exceptions as well, but you can see here, doesn't matter if I turn this on or off, that does not get power. So there's going to be little intricacies about this that you're going to find as you play, but understanding what hard power and soft power is going to be part of you being able to understand that. So now let's talk about some of these like basic redstone components for power. Well, we've already gone over redstone dust. Redstone dust is how you get the power from point A to point B, or to get power to go to certain things. It's one of your most common ways to do that. But there's a lot of different ways to provide power, and I think all of them here. If not all of them, most of them are right here. At least the things that are like intended to supply power. There's other things that aren't necessarily made for power, but they will power stuff. So we have the lever, simple on off, and we have two different types of buttons. There's the wood button and the stone button. Many of you may not know this, but the wood button actually powers things for longer. So I'm going to press this wood button first and then the stone button second, and if they work the same, the stone button light would turn off first. You'll see kind of how a button works. It turns things on, it stays pressed for a while, and then it unpresses itself. and that lets the power go away. If I press both of them, you'll see, even though I press this one last, it goes off first. Stone buttons actually don't stay pressed as long as wood buttons do. So just a little thing that there is to know. Next, and you'll see why I have a bunch of wooden swords in my hand here in a second. There's 3 different kinds of pressure plates. There's just your regular pressure plate, which when you stand on it or something gets put on it, it gives a full power. Power goes out to everything. It's the full 15. If I stand on this gold pressure plate, which is a light weighted pressure plate, you'll see that it gives only a single signal. You'll see if I stand on this pressure plate right here, it also gives only a single redstone signal. If I were to throw an item down on this, you see it lights everything up. If I were to throw an item down on this, one item lights up 1 redstone. 2 items, 2 redstone. Just pay attention to the vertical here real quick. 3 items, it goes 3 deep, 4 items, 4 deep, etc. All the way up to 15. Now, if you do that with the weighted pressure plate, the ratio is not the same. I throw 2 items, it's still only 1 signal. 3 items, still 4 items, 5 items, 6 items, 7 items, 8 items. And I think the 9th item, oh, nope. 9th item doesn't do it. 10, 11, 11th item. The 11th item gives me a second redstone signal strength. So am I sure what I would use this on in terms of my own uses and things that I do? Nope, not really. But it's a difference that you need to know about because you may have an application for it at some point. And the fact that all of these work differently is kind of cool. Next, you have the Redstone Torch, which is on by default. But if you power the Redstone Torch, it does turn the torch off. This is used very often in like redstone torch towers you may see, where they kind of go in like an alternating fashion, either like this, or you may sometimes see them like this. And all you're doing is you're just transferring that power up as it goes. And if I were to take something like a lever and put this lever here and I flick it, you'll see it changes all of the signals. That's because whenever I give a torch power, it turns off, and whenever a torch does not have power, it turns on. So right now, this torch is not being powered, so it is on, and it is powering this block, which is powering this torch, which has this torch off. So if I invert that, if I power this torch to turn it off, then that torch isn't powered anymore. It turns it on, and it works its way up the chain. This right here works the exact same way. It's just going side to side instead of straight up and down. This is called a torch tower. You will see them in many redstone contraptions, and it is a very good way to get a redstone signal from a lower location up to a higher location with the least amount of resources needed possible. Next one, it is often forgotten, but it's the tripwire hook, and it's pretty simple. You place down 2 tripwires and you place down a string in between them, and then anything that walks into that will trigger it. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think items do as well. Yep, so an item there will trigger it as well. You can kind of see everywhere that it's going to apply power to. It powers the block that it's on, and it powers like the block that it occupies and the block that it's against. So this whole space where this hook is powered. You kind of see I can put stuff anywhere, and it does power it. And then it powers this block right here as well. So again, neat little things about the tripwire hook. Next is a detector rail. A detector rail, quite simply, just detects when something's on it. And it has a couple different purposes, but for today's purpose, if I have the minecart going back and forth, every time the minecart goes over top of it, it provides power. And it has a little bit of a delay, so a little short track like this, it kind of stays on even though it's going on off of it. But you can kind of see here that as it goes over, it provides power to all of the spaces around it in the same way that a tripwire hook does. And then another one that a lot of people don't usually think of, but it's a trapped chest. If you open a trapped chest, it will provide power in all blocks around it. So like if I put this right here, open the chest, you see that is powered. It also powers the block that it's sitting on. So any blocks that are touching the block that it's sitting on will also be powered. You see when I open this up, that was turned on. Any block touching the block that it's on, or any block that is touching the chest itself, will get power. there's actually also a block of redstone, a redstone block, and it will also provide power out, full power, the full 15 signal strength to wherever you put it. So, yep, don't forget about the probably most obvious one of all of these, which is the redstone block. And the next thing I want to get to is repeaters and comparators. These guys are really special. We're going to start with the repeater here because it's actually kind of simple to understand. The repeater will take a redstone signal, and no matter how strong or weak that signal is, it will repeat that signal out and give it full strength again, meaning that it will now get the full 15 run again. So it doesn't matter if it's taking a signal of 1 or a signal of 14 or whatever, right? It doesn't matter. That's all it does. It takes the signal, it'll amplify it and send it out. That's what it does. So these guys are super useful. They're also a really good way to hard power blocks. Like, for example, and I don't mean to be all over the place here, but like, let's say I want a redstone signal to come out this way, but I want the signal coming in here to the side. Well, I can't just do this, because you see that does not get my signal coming out that way. It does nothing for me. But if I were to put a repeater right here and hard power this block with the repeater, it gives this block hard power as well. It kind of like transfers its hard power properties over to the block here. And then it allows that signal to be sent out in different directions. Also, though, a repeater can take like power that's being received from a block, like this guy right here that can't normally come out. And it can read that that block has that power state to it, and it can take it and send it back out as well. So repeaters do have a lot of uses outside of just give me more power. They can be used for a lot of different things as well. Now, there's another cool use for repeaters that most people, or a lot of people, don't think to use, but it does exist. Let's say I have a signal going out this way and this way, right? And I don't know what this could be for, but it could be for a variety of different things. But maybe I want to be able to turn this signal off independently sometimes. Well, I can run a repeater here or a repeater here. And then here, watch this. I'm just going to give myself a lever here and a lever here. I can lock a repeater. So if I lock it, it locks it in the state that it's in. So right now, that is locked on. I've taken power away from it, but it has now kind of become its own personal power source. I also like how this is like a bedrock block. It's kind of interesting. It's locked on. I can lock this one as well, and I can lock it off. So if you want to make it to where a repeater does not change its state for some reason, and there are reasons to do this, it's not a feature I use very often. It definitely has its use cases in more complex redstone contraptions. That is a function, is being able to lock and unlock these repeaters. And next comes the different types of redstone blocks. I want to call these redstone blocks, but they're obviously not a redstone block, but these are the like different components or blocks that have redstone interaction with them in some way, or are intended for redstone interaction. You'll see these green lines on top of this hopper. This is a texture pack of mine that shows a few different things. It's going to help me show you how a hopper works when we go over the hopper, which is going to be right now. But the first thing you have is a hopper. A hopper is intended to transfer items from one point to another. So I'm just going to show you the most simple use case of this, but it will work and interact with most anything that has like storage for the most part. But basically all a hopper does is it takes items that go into it and it puts them inside of something. In this case, the items got sucked up by the hopper when I dropped them in. The hopper has 5 total slots, and it can hold full stacks in each slot. And then it takes those items and moves them at a consistent speed into a storage device, or it could be another hopper. You can chain multiple hoppers together like this. I could point this one down into that one, and I can send items down as well. So that's kind of how it works. There's a couple of important things to know about how a hopper actually operates. So you see that the hopper has this little spout right here. If I click on an object, the spout will point to the object that I clicked at. Again, this arrow is a visual thing with my pack, but it's helping me kind of show you that that's the direction that the items are moving. The items will move the direction that the spout is facing. So when it's facing down like this and I have a chest below it, the items will move down into that chest. But if I were to have this hopper facing forward and then have the chest below it, the items aren't going to move down into that. Now, there is another interaction too, though. The top of the hopper is also a funnel, meaning that it will take items from an object above it and it will kind of suck them out. So if I put a item inside of this chest, the funnel part of the hopper will suck that item out of the chest, and now it's sitting in the hopper. So it has an input where it takes items in, and it has an output where it sends items out. Now, interesting interaction with this is if you have a hopper above another hopper and you have it facing straight down, like I do right here, those items will get both pushed out by this hopper because it is facing down. So this hopper is actively trying to send items down to this hopper. And at the same time, this is the funnel part of a hopper. So it is also trying to take items from this. So whenever you have that type of situation going, the items will move twice as fast. So if I put a stack in here, you see it's actually moving 2 at a time. It's moving 2 at a time because this is able to take 2 at a time. But this is only able to push 1 item at a time into a chest. So what you're going to end up with is this thing kind of gets backed up until it's fully taken all the items from here, because it's taking 2 at a time, 1 being pushed by this hopper, 1 being pulled by this hopper, but it is only able to put 1 item at a time inside of this chest. This is your kind of basics of how hoppers work. So the items are going to follow that spout. Now, you can stop items from moving through a hopper. This is another interaction with hoppers and redstone. If you power a hopper, it stops trying to send items. So this is going to be an interesting interaction. I want to show you 2 versions of this, okay? Let me face a hopper forward first. So again, remember how this should work is the only interaction that's trying to happen here is this hopper, the funnel, is supposed to be trying to take items from this hopper right here. If I put an item in, you see it doesn't do that. We've kind of turned the function of this hopper off. It will not suck items in. It will not send items out. It doesn't do either one. But if I were to, oh, and also if I just throw an item at the top of it, it's not going to suck those items in. But if I place a hopper above it facing down, what's going to happen is you see the items are going in. Even though this hopper is disabled, think of it as disabling the hopper, I guess is the best way to do it. Even though this hopper is disabled with power, it's still able to take items in. Well, it's not because it's trying to take the items in. It's because this hopper is pushing the items into it. So that would also happen this way. If I put something right here and I put an item in here, you see this hopper is doing the work. We haven't disabled this one. We've only disabled this one right here. So again, think of it in that term as disabling the hopper. So if you ever need to stop items from getting into this hopper, you need to make sure that you don't have another hopper facing into it. There's a few ways you can get around that. You could do something like this, like we did earlier. This will keep items from getting into that hopper altogether. You could also do something like this, where you have like your items facing like this, and then the item will go through, it'll make it to this chest, but it gets stuck in the chest because this hopper can't suck it out. It's been disabled. This is a really nice thing with the pack that I'm using here. It's a visual pack. It's not available on the marketplace, so unfortunately console users, you guys can't get it. It is a pack that's available on bedrocktweaks.net. So if you wanted to snag it, it really helps you know at a quick glance what direction it's facing. I know that this hopper's facing this way because it's got the little arrow. I know the hopper's turned off because the little arrow is red. And that's kind of the basics of how a hopper works. Now, again, it'll interact with anything that has a storage component to it at all. So you can put stuff into droppers, dispensers, like all sorts of different things. And then you can take items out of all sorts of different things as well. There's some things that will work very specifically and differently. I don't want to get into too many examples, but something like a furnace will have like multiple ways to interact with the hopper. If I put a hopper into the back or the side, that interacts with the fuel slot. If I put a hopper into the top, that interacts with the smeltable slot. And if I put a hopper underneath, that only takes out of the finished items. So just kind of know that hoppers may work slightly differently with different things, especially if they have different interfaces to them. Something like a dropper, all the slots are the same. It doesn't matter. Something like a crafter is going to matter a little bit. Something like a furnace is going to matter a lot. Now, moving on from the hopper, we have two different components here. One is a dropper, this guy right here. One is a dispenser, this guy right here. I'm going to show you two pretty easy examples on understanding how these things work. So a dropper will always drop the item that you put in it. It just spits it out. Arrow, it just spits it out. The glass there, it just spits it out. And it kind of like will do it pretty randomly, right? Like if I just keep flicking this thing, it's going to throw them out in like a variety of ranges and a variety of like distances. So it's not a consistent, it's not going to be the same every single time. There's a variance, there's a sense of like randomness to it. A dispenser though works a little bit differently. Items that cannot be like used will just get dropped just like the dropper did. But items that can be used, like an arrow, for example, can be shot from a bow, it shoots it out. So you see here again, this just drops the arrow. This dispenses the arrow. And you've probably seen this with a lot of different things. Water is a very common use. If I put a water bucket here versus a water bucket here, this guy right here just drops the water bucket. This guy right here dispenses the water out. And then on top of just dispensing the water like this, it can also, like the bucket's still there, so it can use it again to suck that back in. So you could do this with water buckets. It's great for shears. There's a variety of uses that you can use the dispenser for that is different than the dropper. But for items, like I did with the blocks, it's just going to drop them just like the dropper did. Hoppers can interact with this to feed items into it. It will also be able to send items into a dropper or a hopper or a chest or anything like that. So if I click the button here, you see the item is now inside of the hopper. If I grab a chest really quick, it's going to work in the same way. I click the button here. You see that my chest has the pink stained glass in it. Next are going to be the pistons. I'm not going to talk too much about those, but the pistons really just like are made to move things, but in different ways. You have the regular piston, which will just like push, but does not pull. And you have the sticky piston, which the object sticks to it. You see it is stuck. It is moving it up and down just like that. Another thing, I didn't include this. I didn't think about it, but I thought about it just now, is also there is the slime block, I think is here, and the honey block. Let me, let's grab a piston, a lever, and a sticky piston, and just any block is fine. So if I go over here, place this guy right here, I'm going to place a sticky piston right here. And if I place a slime block right here on the sticky piston, now the slime is sticky, so if I put something on it like this guy right here and I trigger that, it sticks to the slime. Anything the slime touches sticks to it, with a couple of exceptions. On Bedrock Edition, those exceptions mostly are just like obsidian and a couple, like there's maybe like one or two unmovable blocks. There's not many. The slime or honey block, honey actually works in the same way. I'll explain a interaction between them here in just a second. The slime block will not stick to some things. Now, what it doesn't stick to is the face of the piston. So once you move that guy in this type of scenario, that's it, it's done. But if you put it here on the sticky piston, you can see it'll move up and down because the sticky piston is stuck to it. And then again, any blocks that I stick to it will remain stuck. See there? But if I put a block right here, you see that's not touching the slime block, so it doesn't get moved. Now there is a piston push limit. The maximum number of things that a piston can move, I can't remember what that is. I want to find it out really quick. This is a good way to do it. I'm gonna flip the power right here. I'm just gonna break a block at a time until it decides to push them. There we go. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 blocks can be pushed by a piston. 13 blocks cannot. That includes the slime block here. So I could put 12 slime blocks on and move them. But if I add too many other blocks attached to them, it's not going to work. The 12 block limit applies. And then also I mentioned to you, some blocks will not stick to slime blocks. But there's special cases that are really cool in Bedrock Edition that don't work on Java. On Java Edition, pretty much anything that has storage cannot be moved by a slime block or by a piston at all. On Bedrock Edition, we don't have that restriction. So you could have these types of things be moved. Whereas on Java Edition, again, pretty much anything that has like an inventory slot to it, I'm sure there's maybe a couple of exceptions, but mostly anything that has any kind of inventory slot to it cannot be moved on Java Edition, whereas all of it can on Bedrock Edition. Now, I thought it'd be fun just now to show you guys some examples of some of these things in action. I'm not going to show you how to build it. I'm not going to explain the entire thing or anything like that, but I do want to kind of show you how it works. Now, this farm right here is a pretty good one to show you a few different things. I have an etho hopper clock in here, which utilizes pistons moving a redstone block to form a sort of clock. But I'm gonna actually flick the lever on this really quick, so it's going to allow me to show you something else, which is I have these flying machines in here. Let's see if I can get in before the flying machine tries to gobble me up. Here we go. And you'll see these flying machines are moving. They're just using the way that pistons work with other redstone. And in this case, I got the honey blocks right there to knock down all of these pieces of bamboo. And through a lot of different redstone mechanisms here, I have it to where that guy gets to the end and it stops. And then the timer down below, every so often, every few minutes, will kind of trigger it to go off again. Kind of a neat little contraption to make in terms of redstone when you have the knowledge to use all this stuff and you kind of like learn and understand how it all works. It allows you to start to manipulate how these things work. I need to turn this thing off before I forget, because these things can break if you let them continue to run when you're not around. And I guess while I'm down here too, it probably helped to show you, we have the use of hoppers right here, moving items from a storage system. All the items that are up there flow into these hoppers right here. It goes into a crafter. We'll go over that a little bit later. That moves the items in, and all of those items get stored in all of the system here and get made into, the crafter makes them into the bamboo blocks, but then they all get stored in here and they flow down the hoppers and flow into the chests. You should be pretty familiar with this if you've made any kind of storage system at all, exactly how it works. But that's kind of the basis of how these hoppers are typically going to be used by the average person. Okay, next we have the target block. And I'm still kind of a novice when it comes to all of the different situations where I can use this, but when it's going to benefit me, it's usually pretty apparent. The target block's actually pretty simple. It does have a couple of interactions technically. I should probably show this as well. Let me get a bow on me really quick. And I think I need to have an arrow on me as well. But the target block, it will put out a redstone signal whenever it's hit by an arrow. See right there, and when you hit a bullseye, I think that signal is greater than if you don't hit a bullseye. Yes, so you can make some cool mini games with that, and that's really what most people think of the target block for. But its more usefulness in terms of redstone actually has to do with the fact that it is a like directional redstone changer. So almost like most other blocks, whenever you run redstone like to it or past it, it doesn't like route itself into it. If I put this dispenser, this dropper right here, this redstone dust does not route into it, which also means if I turn this on, it does nothing. It's not powering this guy at all. But the way that redstone interacts with the target block's a lot different. Whenever it goes by it, it does route into it, which means you can then route out of it in certain situations. Now this guy is being powered by the redstone dust, and this is like another form of power. It is technically hard powered, right? Because it is giving this power out, but you can't just take a redstone signal back out of it. It doesn't work like that. You would have to have some way to like read that signal and take it out. But it can reroute power for a lot of different cool, interesting types of purposes. It'll allow me to get power over to something. It'll allow me to turn a redstone signal a certain direction to be able to do different things. So that is going to be the basic use of the target block and why you see it in a lot of different redstone builds. Now, I have a whole separate video on the crafter. I'm not going to go over it in detail, but this is just another block that will interact with redstone in different ways. Basically, you go through, you can like have items go into it, and it will automatically craft different things for you. And then if you go back and watch several tutorials of mine where you can have certain items go into certain slots, you can turn certain slots on or off, and in turning certain slots on or off will also give you a redstone signal. Right, so if like I read out of it with nothing in there and nothing selected, it doesn't have a signal. But if I hit a button here for every single one of these that either has an item in it or has the slot turned off by clicking on it, it will put out one additional redstone signal. The observer is one of the most useful blocks in the game. It's always watching. It's like Roz in Monsters Inc. Always watching, Mike Wazowski. I'm always watching. So is this guy. So if I do anything in front of this, place a block, break a block, flip a lever, anything happens in front of this dude that's like visual in any way, he's going to notice it. It could be flipping a trap door. He sees all, always watching, Mike Wazowski. So, and what it's going to do, it's going to send every time it sees something, it sends a full 15 signal strength out. I'm not going to do the full thing, but it sends the full 15 signal strength out. Now, these guys can be kind of annoying because you might have like some type of setup where a piston like turns on and off. And in doing that, this guy sends a signal out twice on the extension and the retraction. So it does have times where it can be annoying, and there's certain circuits that you can combine this with to make it only blink once, etc., etc., etc. But it is a very commonly used tool in Redstone, and something really cool is you can make a clock with it super easy. Basically, you face two of these guys against each other. They're both looking at each other in the face, and they're both like, I see you, dude. No, I see you. And they see each other like seeing each other, basically. It's kind of weird. But they see that, and then they keep pulsing a signal. It's an infinite clock. It's a super duper easy, consistent clock. It just sits here and it blinks just like that. So if you ever need a redstone pulse that keeps going, this is about as good as you get in terms of that. Now, there's lots of other clocks. There's comparator clocks. There's torch, burnout clocks. There's a lot of different ways to make a clock that do a variety of different things. But the observer clock is one of the easiest to make because it only requires two observers facing each other. You guys have seen me use this guy a lot. This is the redstone lamp. The redstone lamp is just visual. It's just a light on and off. A lot of people like to use it for like on-off indicators for different farms or systems, or just to show that you have power going to something. It's just a visual thing. It could be a decorative block as well. But you also have this guy here too. This is the copper bulb, and I've only scratched the surface with the copper bulb. There is a lot of really cool tech that you can do with this that probably people haven't really even dove like super deep into yet. Because it was added. It's been a little while now, but still. But it has 4 different states. It has on, which is lit, and powered, which is red. It has on, but not powered. It has off and powered. And then it has off and not powered. It can send like redstone signal out. So like if I take a comparator to read it, if it's on and powered, it gets a signal. If it's on and unpowered, it gets a signal. If it's off and powered, it does not get a signal. And if it's off and not powered, it doesn't give a signal. So lots of interesting ways to use this that, again, I don't quite comprehend, but is there. Then you have the daylight sensor. When you place it down, I think it's like by default, it is like on. So when it's daytime, it gives power. When it's nighttime, it does not. You kind of see exactly how it works here. Nighttime, daytime. You can inverse it. I can tell it to not give a signal during the day and to give a signal at night. So you can tell it to do either way. Now, if I'm correct here, I think it does have to have sky access. Yeah. So if you put a block above it, it can't see the sky anymore. So it's like it doesn't know what time it is. So that's a little quirky thing about it. Now, this is one that confuses me. And I think it's because there's maybe a difference and how the note block works with Redstone on Java Edition versus Bedrock Edition. These guys are used quite a bit on Java Edition for Redstone. I never use them, and I don't know if maybe I'm doing something wrong or what. I know I've seen people like pass signal through them, but I swear I've seen interactions with them too where people will hit them and they will like get detected, but it doesn't happen on Bedrock. So this is just going to be one of those things that I don't really know, but I wanted to include it, and maybe some of you Redstone experts out there can kind of let me know. Is that what it is? Is there just a difference between Java and Bedrock, and there's just not really a use for it on Bedrock Edition where there is in Java Edition? Let me know down in the comments below. And next and finally, we have this, the comparator. This is probably the most important, but maybe the hardest for a lot of people. And the comparator does quite a lot. The main function that I think most people use it for is going to be exactly this right here. It's reading out of a storage container. And it can read out of, I think, every storage container. And here is some of them, but not all of them, some of which you may not even think of. So it could be everything from a chest, a hopper, the droppers, shulkers, barrels. It can even read out of a hopper minecart if it's on a detector rail. It can read out of pots, all these different things, a lot of the profession blocks, and even this guy right here, the bookshelf, which I'll go over here in just a moment. Now, what happens is it will give you a output signal if there's something in the chest, but that output signal will depend like how strong it is, how between the 1 to 15, how far it will go, is based off of like what percentage of the chest or the storage device is full. Okay, so I have two setups here. One is a hopper and one is a chest. A chest has 27 slots in it. A hopper has 5. And then it's going to be, like I said, percentage based on the amount of space that you take up, the percentage of space of the container that you take up. So you can see here, if I put a full stack of something here into this chest, it's only going to give me 1 redstone signal. But if I were to put a full stack into this guy, it gives me 3. That's because of the ratio of like the amount of space I've taken up. So as I throw more things in, this guy's going to fill up more. And it's not based on the number of slots filled, just to make that clear. It is based on the number of actual items filled. And as you can see, I've swapped everything out here from stacks to single items, and it's still only 1. So it's not based on the number of slots that are filled. It's based on how much of the slots are filled. I'm going to give you another example of this. If I were to put some non-stackable items in here, say a bunch of swords, these slots are then considered each filled because each one of these fills up an entire slot. You can't stack swords. It's a non-stackable item. So that will also give us more of a redstone signal the more that we put in. So there are certain breakpoints to know. And then as we click up here, we'll kind of cross a breakpoint. So we go from 22 to 23 items. That takes us from 1 to 2. And I want to say when we go to 47, I think, there we go. When we go to 47, it takes us up another one. So those breakpoints are going to be important. They're kind of the basis of a lot of the different bits of redstone that we do. So for example, here we are at my wool farm here on the guide world. And if I go up here, this is the premise for how these guys, item sorters, work. You'll look into one of these, and it'll have 4 reserve slots selected and then 41 items in the first slot. When this thing gets to 42 items in the first slot, or what ends up being 46 items total, that's when it goes up to a redstone signal of 3, and this thing kind of works. So you can start to see how all of these different components go together. But that's how this works. When this guy gets to 42, it unlocks the hopper below it, and it allows the 42nd item to drain out and bring it back down to 41. And when it gets back down to 41, the redstone signal strength is only 2, and then that makes it so the hopper's locked again. So again, that same idea works with all of this. So you can use any storage container to get a redstone signal out and possibly automate something based off of that particular storage container. And that even includes things like the potion bottles that are down here in the brewing stand. It reads out off of these guys being full, I believe. This guy right here, the lectern's a little bit different. This one's based off of let me find a book real quick, or book and quill specifically. This guy's based off of a book and quill. So if I put a book and quill down here and I flip through the pages, You can see the signal coming out down there. So the different number of pages that you have selected will increase that redstone signal out more and more. Really cool way to make something like a trap door or something, or a secret door, because you can make it to where you have to turn to a specific page for that door to open up, and maybe nobody would suspect that that's what needs to happen. The crafter does so based off of how many of these slots that are either have something in it or are turned off. You have a beehive, which is based off of the honey count, 1, 2, or 3. Number 3 meaning that the hive is full. This is used very often in bee farms. And you have something like this guy right here, the chiseled bookshelf, which will give you a redstone signal based off of the last slot that has been interacted with. So if I do this, the last slot interacted with is 6, so it gives me redstone signal 6. If I put 1 here, it's 1. So whatever the last slot you interact with is the one that is going to give the signal. Now, really, this just touches the surface of what redstone comparators are capable of doing. It is called a comparator, after all, and a comparator, by nature of the way that the name of it, it does compare things. So when I put this guy down, it has 2 different modes. It has compare mode and subtract mode. So I have this hopper here, and it's got 4 swords in it. Now, let's say I want to have no redstone signal when there's 4 swords in the hopper, but when there's 5 swords in the hopper, I do. So I can place down a hopper right here and a comparator right here. And you could do this with anything that can generate redstone signal. But in this case, when I'm trying to do it based off of a higher signal, you're going to need to make sure you get something that can get up to that high of a signal. So like a crafter won't, because a crafter can only go up to signal 9 if you have all 9 of these selected. But any like storage container should be able to go this high. So right now we're in compare mode. And if I put 1, 2, 3, 4 swords in, what this thing is doing is it's comparing when you go into the side of it. If the signal coming into the side is the same or less than the signal that's coming out of here, then it will give a redstone signal. That's the comparison that it's making. So in the side, the signal coming in is 4. Our signal is 4. The comparison checks out. It's the same or less. So it's going to allow signal to go through. If I put a 5th sword in, the comparison now favors this, meaning that this guy right here is putting out less signal than this guy right here. So it's turned off. It's a simple on or off. If the comparator signal coming in is greater than the comparator signal coming out, this guy will not be on. It'll just be off. There's also a subtract mode. I put it into subtract mode here. It's going to subtract this signal out of this signal. So in this case right here, this signal is 4, this signal is 4, but that 12 signal or whatever it was minus the 12 signal here cancels out to 0. So here, I think this will show it a little bit better. So right now, this guy right here with 4 has a signal of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. This guy right here with 3 swords has a signal of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 12 minus 9, so this 9 signal subtracted out of the 12 signal gives us 3 signal. That's how subtract mode works. It's just straight up subtraction. So again, you can either do comparison mode, which is the 3 versus 4 in this case, or the 9 signal strength versus 12 signal strength. The 12 is greater, so the 12 wins. 12 versus 12 in this case, when I have 4 in, that means that they're the same, so this still gets to make a signal. But 15 versus 12, now this side is greater, so this turns off. I know it sounds a little confusing, and if you're trying to create your own device or contraption or do something yourself for the first time, you're going to see this and you're going to think, I don't know what to do with that. That's fine. Eventually, if you start messing around and tinkering with your own redstone stuff, you will. Okay, I actually have a really neat example here. This is a custom Shulker box loader that I've created. A Shulker box loader. And it's going to look confusing, but let me explain to you how it works. First of all, I don't think I explained this earlier, but you can read a comparator can read a signal strength. Let me grab a comparator really quick. Through a single block. So I can put something in here. The comparator can read what's in this chest through this block. is the exact same as if I had a comparator right here. It's no different. Comparator here is exactly the same as comparator here. So this is how this system is working. I have this torch right here, and this torch is powering this dust right here. And since this dust is right beside the torch, it has a signal strength of 15. This is a signal strength of 15 going into the side of our comparator, which is in compare mode because I don't have the little light clicked. So 15 is going to the side. Now this comparator is reading through this block, and it's reading this shulker box right here. And that shulker box does have a hopper going into the side of it. So basically what happens is items go into the shulker box right here. And when that shulker box gets 100% full, every slot is full. And remember what I showed you earlier, a full container like a shulker box, a chest, a hopper, etc. will give you a full signal strength of 15. So when this is full, it has a signal strength of 15 coming out of this comparator. And then this is a signal strength of 15 right here. We're in compare mode. What happens when you have signal strength of 15 and signal strength of 15? The comparison checks, and this guy right here gets to turn on. It gets to make power. When this gets to actually make power, then a whole bunch of other things happen. It gives power to this block, which will turn this torch off, which will turn this torch on. When this torch turns on, this piston pushes that block down. It's a sticky piston. It pushes that block down, so it actually breaks the shulker box. When that shulker box gets broken, we no longer have a signal strength of 15 here because there's no shulker box there anymore. So that means this turns back off. And this piston goes back up. And then there's also a signal right here for a dispenser to dispense a new shulker box into the spot right there. So all of that happens just because that shulker box right there gets filled. So that's a really cool use case for where you're going to want to use compare mode. You could do subtract mode here as well, just a little bit different way. We have other stuff that's going on here too, like an on switch here, or a switch to manually like pulse the whole system. There's going to be a chest right here, and we actually have, I think, a signal reading off of the chest. Yeah. So actually I have a signal reading off of the hopper here. So if that chest gets full of shulker boxes, and then a single shulker box gets backed up into this hopper here, it will do redstone, cut the whole system off. So there's a lot of really cool things once you start to understand what these different components do, how you can have redstone work for you. So my knowledge of redstone has allowed me to set up a bulk storage system here that will completely fill 5 chests worth of whatever the bulk item is. It will give me an indicator light for each chest that gets filled up based off of an item getting read out of the hopper. So I'm reading items out of the hoppers to light these up. And then once this fills up all of the way, then my overflow of bulk items go into shulker boxes here. And then as those shulker boxes fill up, they get broken and put into a chest here. And then if that chest fills up all the way, and then a extra shulker box gets shoved in the hopper back here, it actually shuts the whole system down. That way we don't have more shulker boxes getting broken and then not being able to go into a chest that's full, and then they would just sit there and eventually despawn. And I even, like I said earlier, I also tied in a light here. This light here will tell me if that shulker, or if this chest is full. So if this chest is full, the light will show me and tell me that. So I'll just kind of go by no. And then I have a button here to manually trigger the whole thing, just in case for some reason I need to. And then I think that kind of covers all of the individual components of redstone. So you're probably not a redstone expert yet, but I would implore you to bookmark this video and come back to this at a future date, because with everything I've told you here, you should be able to see something that anybody, me or somebody else, does with redstone, and you should be able to start to pick apart each individual piece and understand what that piece is doing. Whether it be something like I do, where I just kind of make redstone work for farms and storage and stuff like that I need, or whether it be something that's really complex, like a really large piston door. You should be able to start to learn all those different things. There are some things I have not gone over here, and I'm not going to go over in this video. Things like timing, for example, because timing can really have its own separate video. There's stuff to know, like when you send a signal through a block, it increases the timing by 1 redstone tick. I think it's 1 redstone tick. And there's maybe things I don't feel comfortable enough with yet to go over. There's the repeater here, where you can create a delayed timing with the repeater based on what you set here. Like basically all redstone components in some way, shape, or form, I think, will increase your timing by some amount. And those things can be important for stuff like making piston doors and stuff like that, where you won't need pistons to go off at very specific times. Also, Bedrock Edition, not great when it comes to timing. The timings aren't as tight as Java. So if you ever see a Java tutorial for redstone and you try it on Bedrock Edition, there's a number of reasons why it's probably not going to work. Timing is only one of them. There's going to be many other ones as well. But maybe we'll do that for another video if I can sharpen up on how timing works a little bit. But at the very least, you're going to understand how all the components now work on their own, and in some ways how they can work together. And it should help you start to figure out exactly how redstone works. If you enjoyed this video and you like these, subscribe to the channel, leave a like on this video, maybe share it, recommend it to a friend, and make sure to refer back to it anytime you need some help with redstone bits and bobs. Appreciate you guys watching today, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.